Hi friends, how we doing today? I am going to be bringing you some new things at Walmart, specifically Profusion. I got a package from Profusion just this past week and there were some fun, new and interesting things in there, and I thought, well, my folks on YouTube might want to know about this stuff. So we're going to talk about it today because as you guys know, I use Profusion brushes, several of them for face and eyes, like with a lot of regularity, and they've got some new ones now. It says new look, but it's essentially the eye brushes and the face brushes that I really like, but I want to test them and see if they're really the same feel on the face, you know, and there's some other little tools and just odds and ends, so I'm going to work it all into this video. But I hope you guys are having a good week. I'm shooting this on Monday morning, so we watched the Super Bowl last night. I didn't get to catch as many commercials as I wanted to. I just felt like I was doing stuff and talking to Dookie and Biddy, and we're just kind of carrying on. Anyways, let's get started. I have just my skincare on. One of the things Profusion sent is this new primer. It's called Get a Grip. Everybody's got their gripping primer these days, don't they? I'm checking the price on it. This is $7.97. So Profusion's prices, I feel, tend to be pretty reasonable. Those brush trios are going to be right around the $10 mark. They've got all sorts of palettes. I don't really have palettes in this video, oddly enough, but that's usually something I think of when I think Profusion. I think of those palettes that are like yay big, and it's a 10-pan eye palette. They even have some really nice larger palettes too, and the quality tends to be awesome in those. So if you're looking to sort of build your eyeshadow collection, Profusion is a brand that I really think of. But we're going to try this primer here. Pump some out. It just looks completely clear as you pump it. Feels not like the stickiest. It's a little step down from e.l.f. But as I get it on my face and as it's kind of trying to set up, it's really feeling quite tacky. Like it's kind of telling me, nope, I'm not spreading anymore. But the immediate, right out of the gate, right out of the pump, it was a little thinner, like on contact, and then definitely feels pretty much just as tacky as e.l.f. now that it's on there. In case you're curious, one of the thinnest ones that does claim to have a gripping benefit that I really do like this Aqua Splash Grip Hydrating Primer from Catrice. This one goes on very smoothly, very easily. The next thing that I want to mention is this Blending Essentials set. So here I've taken out a couple of the things, but it's a 4-piece set. You're getting two puffs, sort of. This one that I took out, look how chunky it is. It's like a little marshmallow with a handle or something. And it's just really soft and squishy. Like it's not something I would wet under the sink, but you could tell, like, as you put that on your under eye, it's just going to grab the cavernous areas there. If cavernous is a word, it seems like it should be. But then along with that, you're getting a smaller one that's more like a traditional little flat puff, you know what I mean? It's about that size. And then there's two blending sponges. This is the smaller one, this is the larger one, and I have saturated this at the sink and then squeezed it all out, so it's normally this size, but it's grown to that size. And I thought I'll try the sponge getting my makeup blended today. I think I'm going to use my Revolution Skin Silk. I've been enjoying this foundation. It is super duper thin, and what is it about a glass bottle and a pump that makes me think more like traditional foundation vibes, you know? I'm not thinking, oh, this is just gonna run right off my finger when I pump it out, but it does kind of give me that feeling. Very thin, but more potent on the coverage than you might expect for as thin as it feels. That's a phenomenon I can get behind, you know? And then, oh, I'm just kind of like wiping on this sponge because I know she's gonna get dirty. Sponge feels great as far as sponges go. Like, I can't really pick apart the sponge. It's a traditional Beauty Blender shape, but it is growing in size to be larger than a Beauty Blender. It feels soft enough though. I feel like it's robbing me of a little coverage blending this particular foundation out with a sponge because it just doesn't need to be really thinned out anymore. But I was just kind of curious. My skin looks super natural right now, but yet still some coverage. Really, I feel like this will blend you out pretty quick. The butt end of that sponge, like, look how much surface area that actually covers. So I would say I'm not like flabbergasted by this, like, oh my gosh, look what it's doing. It's just a, on the larger end, traditional blending sponge, and like I said, is plenty soft enough. By the way, that whole set is $7.97. Let's see how that same sponge does with a little bit fuller coverage concealer though. I want to see it work into something and kind of thin it out slightly, spread it out. I'm taking good old traditional Tarte Shape Tape in the shade Light. Get that all around my dots, and then I'm just gonna like dip in and kind of spread a little. I think I'm doing a little tap and spread move before I truly start blending. And then I've got some brushes, you know, that we need to test as well, just to make sure they're still good. Because I can see when I look up the brushes on the website, I'm now getting this pinky look. I don't think it's just a limited edition thing, but I guess it possibly could be. But when they identify it as new look, that's when I think they've given the original a makeover. Really nice blending there. Really even. I feel like I'm able to get right in here, but yet not totally. It's still a little big for this little zone. Gotta get to that part with a brush. Good sponge, and I feel like given the amount that it grows when you add water to it, I might be good with the smaller of the two for day-to-day stuff. Another thing I want to do, here's our Face Essentials set. So they're cute, but they've made them pink instead of black handles. I thought the brushes looked just fine before, but I want to make sure they're the same feel, doing the same job. You're still getting the buffing foundation brush, the round tapered powder brush, which that shape looks a little different, or maybe this just kind of isn't smushed out as much. And then this they're calling the flat setting powder brush. It looks a little smaller than a Real Techniques setting brush. I use my buffing foundation brush all the time. Size-wise, at a glance, they're looking the same. The bristles don't seem quite as dense, but I need to get it on my face to know for sure. I'm gonna dab in, not like I need it, but a spot more concealer, maybe just down in here. Okay, just gotta give it a little something to work with. Add a little to my nose. The handle is like transparent, see-through, and ombre coloring to the bristles, fading from white to soft pink. I just need to feel it around my face the way I would use that brush. To me, it's feeling workable but less dense. This is kind of disappointing. Honestly, maybe a little bit more comparable to a Sephora 56, which could be good news for someone, but not quite the thickness and the density of bristles as their original one that I loved for foundation. This is feeling a whole lot like a Sephora 56 though for cheeks. So I don't know if this is kind of a good news, bad news situation. And then these other brushes, you don't see me use these as much, but I'm just kind of comparing to the original. Seems a little less dense. Likewise here, the brush shape is a little different than their original. Just a little smaller. It's not saying they can't be a good brush, I'm just noting a little change there. And I really want to use this little puff with some powder. Now, like I said, it's super soft. It's an even softer sponge feel than this one. Absolutely ultra soft to the touch. And I feel like it could be really good with powder. I'm gonna use some Coty Airspun today. Let's just see. Again, this is part of that set that comes with the makeup blender sponges. And then it has a little flat one. I can't quite tell. I maybe didn't get enough powder on. I wanna see if it can just like lay down some powder, because when the powder touches this, I feel like it disappears. Maybe it's because it's the exact color of my Coty Airspun. I'm laying it down. I almost feel like with it being this texture and not velour, like the Catrice, where it's just a soft velour sponge, or puff, I should say. You wouldn't think of a sponge as being absorbent for powder particularly, but I feel like I'm dipping into a normal amount for me that I would end up seeing a little excess on top of my skin with. I don't know. I feel like the sponge is taking some. Maybe I'm crazy. I'm gonna use this round tapered powder brush to dust away. That feels decent for that step. I would sometimes just use my round tapered powder brush, my old one, maybe just as a touch-up, like just dabbing a little powder in certain areas. This would still be fine for that purpose. Like, I haven't really assigned a huge responsibility to this brush in my rotation. And my brush that's this size is often what I'll use to just like maybe swipe away some fallout, but a great job you could give to this one would be highlighter if you need that type of brush. If you don't yet have like a Real Techniques setting brush and you're just thinking like, what role does that play? It would be a highlighter brush, or it could lightly set under eye, you know, either of these could. And by the way, Profusion, vegan and cruelty free, they point that out with their brushes. I like that they didn't completely change the composition of the trio. Like, they gave us the types of brushes that I think are good to have, but I'm a little disappointed that none of them feel quite as full as I'm used to them feeling. But that being said, the buffing foundation brush could become a great cream bronzer or cream blush type of blending tool. We're gonna take a quick pause and then I'll get back to some other steps. Not much just happened there. I actually only put on bronzer because guess what? We do have a blush here. It's called Blush Crush Bouncy Blush. And I just put my finger into this and it is like, I don't know if you can tell, but you can smush into this one a little bit. It's feeling quite a bit like the original Maybelline Bouncy blushes of the past, and these sell for $5.97, and I have the shade Peach Crush. I just got one shade. I can tell they have one called Mauve Crush as well that looks a little more deep and rosy. But no, this is interesting because, as you might recall, we tried something from Essence last week that claimed to be like a bouncy blush type of thing. What did they call it? Soft touch bouncy blush. And theirs wasn't real bouncy. It was beautifully pigmented, but just like a different kind of product. So I would consider this just not a real creamy cream, if you know what I mean. And I think a brush would get the job done fastest. There's a color. I'm sorry, when I'm really trying to show y'all a color, I feel like it kind of needs to come down toward the apple so you can totally see. It's matte. If you've been wanting a cream textured product that looks like a true matte on the skin, this is it. Total absence of shine. Doesn't really look like you've just applied a cream product, which usually gives just a little bit of a creamy glow, even if it's not shimmery. Like there's just a texture in it that can give off just a slight bit of dewiness. This doesn't even have a slight bit. It doesn't look cakey, but it just is not giving any shine whatsoever. That's interesting. But for sure, it's the closest thing I've felt to a classic dream bouncy blush from Maybelline that I know we all really liked back in the day. Remember Hot Tamale? I think that was an iconic shade. Okay, well, I've made that peach work for me, I think, pretty well. It feels buildable, but like I said, you're just not getting any shine out of that product, so just know that. Next up, we've got an interesting little thing here that I think I'm going to use for highlighter. It's called Jelly Beam Multi-Use Jelly Shimmer Stick, and this shade is called Golden Beam. So it looks just like a small little, practically like a small lip balm. And then we do have a sub cap on this, which is unusual to see for a product like this. And then I'm seeing a really shiny stick. I'm gonna swatch that. Oh, she's glittery. Can you see that swatched on my hand? I'm seeing a lot of little shimmer flakes, and it is kind of trying to set, actually. I don't know. I don't know if I would love this on my cheeks. Seeing how concentrated that sparkle looks, I actually think this might be better on the eyes for a little spotlighting eye thing, because it's not feeling overly creamy, but it is feeling like it's wanting to set in place, and like I said, a definite sparkle there. Stand by for that. Next up, as we've seen, it's a trend. You know, we've got the gripping primer, but then they also want to put out a gripping setting spray. This is called Get a Grip Gripping Jelly Setting Spray. Interesting thing about this product is I can turn it and that liquid is not moving. It's a full-on like gel inside of here is the feeling I'm getting. It says jelly-based formula, dewy finish, lightweight and hydrating, infused with hyaluronic acid and squalane. How is this gonna like spray out? Ooh, it's spraying in a super fine mist, guys. Okay, let's try. Really surprisingly fine mist, and I don't feel like my complexion looks all that different. Let's give it maybe a couple more shots of this. Really hit center of the face there to try to see if, like, looking at my cheeks, can you see much change? Maybe a little bit. Like, I can feel it on my face, but I don't really see it. Maybe a slight bit, but maybe I'm just that matte. Actually, I think I am seeing it. I'm seeing it in person as well. My cheeks do have a very matte look to them today, but looking up close with a gentle turn, I'm still seeing a surface of the skin kind of vibe. Interesting. We'll see how the staying power is. This foundation has worn very well for me, even without a setting spray, so we'll see how that goes throughout the day. Alrighty guys, we gotta test out the eye brushes, and there are 2 out of the 3 in their eye brush trio that I use daily. One is their firm blending brush. I just call this my crease brush. As you can see, it is pinched there at the top of the ferrule, but it has some fluff. That's one that I use every day. But now we're looking at the newly revamped look. And also the small pointed brush, I'm using this all the time in my outer corner and also maybe smudging on the lower lash line. And what I noted with the face brushes was maybe a change in density somewhat. I'm holding this side by side with the original crease brush. Still feels super soft. I feel like maybe this is a little less thick with bristles too, but we'll see. And then the small pointed brush, looking very similar. I feel like that one's going to give me the same experience, but they did change what they put in as a third brush. The typical third brush was something that I never really felt was quite big enough for packing on shadow like all over the lid. It's called Flat Shader Eyeshadow Brush, and now they've downsized even more. This was the ES5. Now they've given us an ES7 Flat Precise Eyeshadow Brush. I wish it could have been an even larger flat brush because you would have been totally set, but they went small, and I don't feel like this is a real necessary brush for a lot of people. Like maybe it's going to pop some shimmer right in there on the inner corner, but hardly any flexibility here. I'd practically use it more as a lip brush, you know? I feel like it could be well suited for that. Just saying, we're really looking at these two today, and we're seeing if they're going to perform the way my total must-haves can. And I've pulled out the new look of the Smoky palette. The Smoky palette is something I've owned for quite some time, but they've revamped the look. They sent it to me a while back, and I thought, let's use the new one. I'm going to go into this shade here called Top Notch. I can just tell poking it in there, this feels flatter than my usual crease brush. I'm a little sad. I feel like maybe this was an effort to, I don't know, cut the expense a little bit. I'm not saying this can't do crease work or blend, but there was more, for sure, more volume of bristles in the other one. Giving myself a soft crease here just to pop this in. It's thicker. It's chubbier. If you look at it sideways, it's chubbier. This one looks more flat. This one looks like she'd been on a diet. I don't need my eye brushes to go on a diet. Let's go down here to this shade, Sandstorm. Give it a little more color to work with and just see if I can control it, you know? I can get it on there. I just don't like it as well. I'm just being honest with you guys. Like, I don't like it as well as the usual. Given the changes that were made where we kind of feel like I'm getting a lighter weight brush here, I'm getting less density to the bristles, it has to be something that's been done in the name of cutting costs, which I'm just sitting here on the consumer end of things, you know. I knew for a long time I was getting a steal of a deal on amazing eye brushes, and it's just too bad that something eventually had to change for the brand to continue to keep them fairly priced eye brushes, I guess. But there we are, we've blended. I just feel like I'm blending with a borderline flat brush. I mean, you turn that thing sideways. That is not near the fluff that it once had. I'm going to take just a blending brush and kind of help myself blend the edges a little. I'm not doing this eye look whatsoever to wow you with my creativity. I am literally just trying to see if the brush can do things that it normally does for me. Okay, I've taken that matte cream that's in here and I'm going over the edge. This brush, obviously too small to pack things on. I'm going to reach for my Morphe M303. I just feel like they missed the boat, and I understand. The vibe is downsizing here. I'm taking this one that kind of matches my shirt. They're making things smaller, but if what they took from the other brushes could have been put into a decent sized flat brush, you would have a set of 3 that could do like everything for you. Okay, I'm just packing this beautiful nutmeg shade. No complaints on the eyeshadows, by the way. Even though they repackaged, the shadows are phenomenal, but this just isn't really about the shadows today. Nutmeg, she's what you see is what you get. We're just packing it on the outside. I now need to see if any changes in density affected this small pointed brush. I'm gonna take a little bit of graphite right here. Been working with mattes to this point. So graphite's going to be a little darker than, what was that? Nutmeg. Speaking of nutmeg, I'm proud of myself. I completely reorganized the cabinet that holds my spices, and I got rid of a lot of overlapping spices I didn't know I had, and I've got them all neatly organized. It's been a long time coming, friends. I'm not trying to brag here. It was not in good shape for a while. Okay. I'm having no problem with the small pointed brush. You know, it needed to have a little movement of bristles. The problem you'll run into with a lot of brands that put out a brush this size is that they're making them too stiff and they can only operate like a pencil brush. This one still has the movement. It really feels a lot like the old one. I'm going to take a little bit of that same shade, going head first into that, getting it right on the tip of the brush and seeing how she does on my lower lash line for a little smudgy smudge. No trouble there. And then I would take my medium flat brush from Morphe, my M302, and just choose, I don't know, maybe a little shimmer here, a little bit of this golden shade called Twinkle, and let some of that come in on the inner part of my lid just to finish things off for us. So I guess in conclusion, I'm not pleased that the crease brush, the brush that I use in my crease all the time that they call the firm blending eyeshadow brush, I'm not pleased that that has gotten smaller, because that really does, it changes my experience using it. And I can do a crease with it, but just not with the same ease and finesse of the other one. But as I said earlier with the face brushes, the way it looks online, it seems like new look means this is what we're putting out now. I hope I'm wrong. I'm hoping that maybe it is just a special thing. One other thing we can do here though, guys, we've got, remember this Jelly Beam stick in the Golden Beam shade. If you wanted to see a little bit of that going on kind of as a topper, oh, it glides on really easily, and it's adding just like this little bit of sparkle here to my lids. Can you see it? Gleam, gleam. That's pretty. Hopefully it doesn't affect the staying power all day, and I already had a little shimmer on there, so it might have been kind of hard to see what this is doing, but it's definitely popping off even more and really feeling like controllable glitter. When it's in a stick format, it's not flaking around everywhere. You can lay it down there and you're not risking it getting all over your cheeks. So that's a cool thing to have on hand, you know? Alrighty guys, the final new thing that we have here is something called Glowy Jelly Gloss. It's in a box like this. It says Nourishing Jelly Lip Gloss, Grapefruit Jelly is the shade I have, and it says it has a silicone applicator. I'm not wild about silicone applicators, but let's see how this goes on and if it gives us any color. So there's that small little applicator. Okay, it looks like it is going to give us like a sheer wash of something here. Not getting any scent. Getting this spread around. I don't understand this kind of applicator at all. I just don't get it. It doesn't cover much surface area of my lips. However, as far as this particular product goes, like I thought, oh, that's just going to go on clear when I saw the packaging and I just kind of saw the name. But actually it's giving me this little, you know, peachy look all over that's actually not streaky. Feels very hydrating, feels rather thick. Might be something in the future I would like to wear over a lip liner that just gives me a little more definition, a little more finished look to things, but I wanted you to be able to see just purely what this can do. It reminds me of a little softer take on the reddish shade of the Maybelline Lifter Gloss. I think it's called Sweetheart. It looks like maybe it's going to be a transparent red, but it shows up some. This is like much softer than that, but still giving us something. So that's cool. I do like the feel. But I would say as far as my favorite things that I've tried today, I think this 4-piece sponge and puff set is actually a really good value. You're getting the 2 sponges of different sizes. You're getting a small traditional puff that would be very good for just setting the under eye. And also this guy that's like a puffier puff, which I'm kind of not mad at the fact that it doesn't overload you, and I think I might really like it for touch-ups too. I'm definitely not done experimenting with that thing, but I think that's a good deal. I also can tell you right now that I like their Bouncy blush that they put out, which reminds me so much of Maybelline's old thing. And also the Jelly Beam. If you're the type of person who is always wanting to add a little sparkle to the eyes, but you're sometimes frustrated about how that texture translates out of an eye palette that's powder-based and just a little too flaky, this really confines it, and to touch my lid, it is not tacky at all. So I think that's a cool thing. I can't really speak to these products yet as to how good they're gonna be ultimately. I'll see how my staying power is today. I expect it to be good with the Skin Silk, but we'll see if this makes it, I don't know, maybe extra good. Maybe I'll still look a little more hydrated than usual. But if I'm starting to see breakdown, maybe I'll wonder if this was a good pairing. And the Get a Grip Mist, just really unusual how there is absolutely no liquidy movement. It feels like such a, the word solid gel doesn't make sense, but you know what I mean? There is no liquidity to this product, and then it does spray out with a fine mist somehow, and you're like, how did that happen? I'm not sure on those yet. The brushes kind of disappointed me, really. On those face brushes, I could really tell the decrease in volume of bristles. However, that being said, for what it does to the buffing brush, it makes it a little bit more like a Sephora 56. So if you're looking for that type of thing, I've said the same thing about a Real Techniques Expert face brush. That size can work really well for blending out a cream blush, a cream bronzer, and I feel like that one would be good for it too. Disappointed at what the change did to my usual crease brush. At least the small pointed brush stayed stayed good. This little guy, I mean, I don't know. I'm just realistically not gonna need that shape and size very much. And the gloss, I could take it or leave it. I think it's good for what it is, but I don't love the silicone applicator. And you know, all in all, she's just a really soft looking color. But thank you guys so much for your time today. I hope this sorted out some things on Profusion's line and just some new additions you might be running across in Walmart these days. Thank you so much for supporting my channel, and I will see you again next time. I love you. Bye.